I'm gonna get this panel done one way or the other. I've, like most things, made it a little more difficult on myself. Just trying to explore different ways of getting a final panel cut. And not just getting a final panel cut, but figuring out where I wanted things and how I could temporarily position things as I progressed along. And you might remember I had several plastic iterations of my panel that allowed for some really easy adjustments to be made, ultimately landing with the panel that I have now, which is aluminum, but it's not the aluminum that Vans provided. It's a totally new panel that I had created from Send Cut Send. And you might think, dude, it's working great, slap some paint on it, call it good. Except things aren't quite where I want them yet. I still want things to be moved slightly. And there's some additional holes that I need. And not only that, the material itself, I selected as best I could from what was available, but it's a different alloy and it's a different thickness slightly. And it's not quite what I wanted. So in a move that I found almost frustrating, but at the same time a little relieving, I am back to the Vans panel, except now it's got the cutouts where I want them. I had a local fabrication shop water jet cut this with my final layout. They are later going to powder coat this with a fantastic color that I selected from their wall, and a couple other pieces to match. And it's exactly what I want. It's the right material. It came from Vans. Mentally, that helps me a little bit because I haven't veered too far off a plan. And I think it's going to do just the trick. However, getting from where I'm at now to this panel installed is a bit of a feat because everything has to now come out of the plane. This has to be prepped. There are things that I have to prep before I powder coat. That's why I have the bare metal in hand right now. Rivets that I want set, because if I set them later, they'll stick out like a sore thumb on the panel versus having them powder coated with everything else. And all of that, I imagine, is going to take a lot of time and frustration. So like everything, I guess I better get started right away. I will also note that at the same time I had the new panel cut, I had a new veneer cut for my center stack. I'm really excited about this. The two pieces line up frickin' perfectly, and the center stack cover piece is semi-functional in that it's going to help cover up some rivets or screws that ultimately hold the brackets for my center stack, but it also ties in the carbon fiber from the air vent surrounds that I had fabricated earlier on to create kind of a cohesive look throughout the cockpit. I think it's really cool. I can't wait to see all this together. Now, even though the bezel of the GDU is going to hide these rivets that hold these brackets in, I'd rather not do this drilling and countersinking on a finished piece. So they will be attached before the powder coating. I also wanted to make sure I match drilled with the GDU in place. Reason being, I oversized these holes just a little bit to make sure everything fit. Realistically, the fit that you want is from the GDU to the bracket, and this is kind of just hanging out in between for support. Trying to make these exact size and exact placement just seemed like, I don't know, not worth it. So it does require, however, that I make sure that the GDU is here when I'm match drilling, or else I could get it so far off that the GDU doesn't wind up fitting into the threaded holes here. Makes sense? Probably not, but trust me. Or don't, I don't care. All right, the GDU brackets are done. Pretty happy with how they came out, even though those rivets will be hidden. Great practice run to make sure they're nice and flush with the face panel so that when powder coated, they have the least amount of visibility as possible. I will note on these, this is a huge tip for anybody that's installing a GDU in any sort of panel like this. I've been cautioned to squeeze those rivets very gently, as over squeezing them can actually cause the threaded insert that Garmin has placed there to pop out. And once it's out, that bracket's done. All right, on to the next thing. A little bit more challenging here, but I think still well within my capability, the G5. For the G5, I've done this before. I did it with the current panel, and it's pretty simple. I just pack similar sized stacks of paper or card all around it to make sure that it's centered within the cutout, because the cutout is just slightly larger, and I don't want to get it kinked or lopsided one way or the other. Once that, you get it clamped in place, drill the 4 holes. Then similar to the GDU brackets, I'll go ahead and countersink and set the rivets. At the same time, because I've moved a couple pieces just ever so slightly, I have to adjust the bracket a little bit. So I'll grind down and remove some material where things will now infringe upon it in this new layout. These rivets I want to be a little more careful on. They will be visible, you know, underneath the powder coat. And so if they're left angled or sticking up, not completely flush, you're going to see it. So it's this next part that I don't really know how to approach. I need to match drill the holes in the brackets I created for the center stack into that new panel. And I don't know whether it's easier to try and take the stack to the bench or to take the new panel and try to replace this one. Normally I would go ahead and just replace the panel because I'm going to have to do that anyways. but I still have to take it out and get it powder coated. I think because of that, it's going to be easier to leave all of this crap where it's at and simply try to move the stack. However, the part making that difficult is that the connectors in the back of the stack are actually screwed in to the various racks for those pieces. So that means every component has to come out of the stack. I have to take several of those screws out to get the stack out. All of it's just kind of exhausting me thinking about it. Once it's out of the old panel, I gotta get it fitted to the new panel, which means once again, utilizing all my avionics to test fit and make sure that everything's square and centered. In addition to the avionics and the rack that they go in, I also have to get some throttle brackets mounted. I've got two sizes, both sizes that Stein offers depending on which way I want to go, leaving my options open for the future. But I have to create a mounting system that will allow for these to be interchangeable. With that, this thing is ready to head back to the fabricators for the powder coat. I'm incredibly excited to see what it looks like. I'm excited. I'm beyond excited. Panel, powder coat. So let's take a look at what I got. Well, that looks fantastic. I love the color. I think the lettering is going to show up beautifully. It's a little elevated from anything I could have done. I love it. Just to see. Oh yeah. Yeah, this will be great looking for sure. I got other things I should be doing, but I'm gonna get right to it. I'm curious to know exactly how good the lettering is gonna look on it. I've got it ready. I'm gonna start applying some of these dry transfer decals. This is embarrassing, but it's also hilarious, so I don't mind sharing. I got my rights and lefts backwards on my PMags here. Oh boy. Luckily, I have at least one extra of each decal. In the case of the PMags, I've got 2 or 3 extra. So I won't have a problem scratching off the R and the L and swapping them. Just a little bit of a, embarrassing rights and lefts moment. Having my own little Carroll Shelby moment here with a little decal to say who built this thing. I do have some other labels. They're primarily going to be going on my throttle mount bracket down below, though some of them might get moved up to here. Those would be things like heater and alternate air, should I decide to go with the smaller throttle bracket and move things around a bit. All of this is going to get a coat of clear to help protect them, and then it's going to go in the plane, which I am incredibly excited about. It's gonna look cool. All right, it's about high time to get this temp panel out and the final panel in. In an extreme commitment to continuity, I went ahead and switched back into the flannel. So this entire episode has been filmed and edited over the course of about 3 or 4 months, and it poses some problems. You see, both figuratively and literally, it's hard to tell where this panel stops and where the rest of the airplane starts. And the idea behind this episode was all about the panel and getting it into the airplane. But what about the surround of the panel? And what about everything else that's been happening in the meantime? So, like I sort of indicated, I'm largely basing the criteria on what makes it into this episode on what shirt I was wearing. As a result, you're going to see some things that haven't been completed thus far in my video series. Don't worry, we will go back and we'll take a look at those and I'll cover them in detail. For now, just like close your eyes or cover that part of your screen or something. Don't spoil the surprise, please. In a previous episode, I had mentioned how I forgot to break the edges of the forward top skin before doing the dimpling. Now, once you've dimpled, you can no longer break those edges, at least using the tool that I have. And so I came up with this little solution to try and put a little bit of a break on that edge so it better seats with the side skins of the fuselage. It actually worked quite well. I'm impressed with what I was able to achieve here, as you'll see shortly. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by the finish on this thing. It looks fantastic. It's exactly what I wanted. Now, here's the deal. While I think it's far too early to limit my access by riveting this in place, I have a friend coming over who's going to help me do just that. I figure I better take advantage of it, and I'm going to want to get this windshield on sooner rather than later. So, with that, it's time to prep this thing for installation. Once I hit all the rivets that I could solo, I had a buddy over, as mentioned, to help me hit the rest. Unfortunately, not much caught on tape because I was pretty well occupied with my head underneath the panel. Not a spot I want to find myself in very much, but unfortunately I think it's going to be a theme from here on forward in the build. The hour or so I spent down there, well worth it. The rivets looked fantastic, and that set me up for what came next.
I think it's good.
I literally just vacuumed inside here. This is incredible. This is beyond incredible. I'm sort of blown away. This is absolutely incredible. A lot of this, I sort of developed this plan as I went through the wiring and the whole avionics process. And so I didn't start out with a final product in mind. However, where I've arrived is beyond anything that I could have imagined. I think it looks sharp, and I don't mean to like toot my own horn too much, but this is absolutely incredible. I almost feel a little undeserving, and at the same time, I can't think about how far I've come since I was a little kid trying to build an RC airplane out of a walkie-talkie and cardboard tubes. It's cool. It is so freaking cool, and it just looks sharp. There's a few minor things that I gotta complete. I was missing a couple screws because they were sold out. I need some plastic plugs up here that'll be here tomorrow. By and large, it is like 99.9% done, and I am 99.9% in love with it. I'm not going to kid myself. I'm going to have to go back a little bit. The screens will have to come back out at some point. In fact, there's a couple switches here I need to adjust. And I'm not done spending time underneath all of this. I still have to route my control cables, my throttle cable, my prop cable, my mixture. And that means a lot of time under here, along with finalizing the center tunnel. But for now, I'm going to revel a little bit in the fact that this is done. Only thing left to do now is hit the switch again. It's been a while since I've had these things on. They still work. My fans work. I got my fans. Freaking cool, man.